Yeah, so thanks for coming, everybody. I'm John Sargent. My company's Deep Roots Craftsman, and we're based up in Fort Collins. And we do quite a bit of window and door work. We also do pretty broad range of historic preservation work, pretty much anything historic we tend to get into, but a good portion of our staff is dedicated just to the window and door work. We've got a shop up in Fort Collins that's pretty much geared to this kind of work, and a big part of our mission is also the education component. So thank you all for coming today. Good to see familiar faces too. Jim was at one of our window workshops last year, and it's just really great to get people coming out in the community and knowing that we can start to hopefully get some of the information out to homeowners. So today it'll be kind of mixed. We're going to start here obviously and just kind of run through some broader topics. I don't want to spend too much time with that. I'd rather get as much time as we can on site. We're lucky enough, thanks to the city and Lisa, that kind of coordinates having a site where we can really dig in on a window opening and talk through some of the challenges right in front of you, so that should be great. And huge part of it in my mind is just making sure that it's kind of geared towards this audience. I don't want to flood you with information that you already have, but I want to kind of cater it to what everybody wants to get out of this. So before I kind of talk through a little bit of the process, I was hoping to just kind of go around the room and maybe you could just give your name, and then just if there's one thing that, above all else that you're looking to come away from this from, or come away from today with, if you want to just let me know that, and then we'll see, kind of how we can cater things. So maybe if you want to start on the end here.
Bill Waltman, and my house is only 25 years old, but it's got the weights and all that stuff, but they're more modern, so I'll glean whatever information I can from you. I don't know if they've changed the theories and all on double hung windows over the years. They have, I guess. So.
Great. No, that'll be great. Yeah, it'll be good to get some perspective. It sounds like a lot of people in the room have historic homes, primarily personally, and it's great to have something more recent too, so we'll be able to see how you differ or are similar. That's great. Thank you.
Which I've had weighted glass in my windows, and some of them are cracked, so I need to replace. Some of them will not open, like been painted 100 years, won't open. So, and I'm sure some of the weights are missing.
Great.
Becky Dunn, and I have a house that's 115 years old. Some of the windows have been replaced, but I have at least 5 that are still the original, and many of them are painted shut, so I'm not even sure if they need this kind of repair, but I want to be ready.
Sure. Great.
Jim Nelson. I have a 1907 Craftsman bungalow near 9th and Macon, and we restored all the windows last year. So we're in better shape than we were. They're not painted shut anymore, they're operable. We have storm windows for some of the windows and screens for some, but we have to get some new storm windows and some new screens. Of course, with the outside temperature being warmer, the circulation you get with the double hung windows isn't as great as it was when the air temperature was not quite so hot. But we don't have air conditioning, so we do rely on air movement to help kind of keep the house comfortable. So I'm on the Historic Preservation Commission too, along with Richard. Aaron's involved too. So we're trying to encourage people to not just yank out their windows, but to actually understand the value of the original windows and consider keeping them and maintaining them. And as the Historic Preservation Commission, we want to do everything we can to help make that feasible and to help, make living in an older residential area and the older home comfortable and as energy efficient as we can.
Great, thanks, Jim.
Aaron Maleko, I have a triplex that was built in the 1870s, and it has a lot of windows that I'm afraid to open. And I'm looking for alternatives to, just like Jim said, ripping everything out and putting vinyl windows in, you know, because the more of them that I can save, hopefully I can save some money and save some character of the building.
Yeah, and as I've read about this, the wood that the windows are built out of is old growth, a lot more sustainable, and, you know, it's a shame to have it end up in a landfill or, you know, rather than preserving it, and it'll last a lot longer if it's properly maintained.
I figured if it lasted 100 years, it
Yeah.
should be able to last a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Although we had a rotted sill, so, I mean, there are vulnerabilities,
Sure.
and you have to do some replacement, but that can be done and kind of keep them safe and sound.
I'm Tiffany Roybal from Pueblo, and I have lived 15 years in a house that's about 100 years old, and 5 huge windows. Mainly the only thing I've been doing to them is keeping them clean. One we were able to open, and it seems very delicate, so I'm just excited to learn something about those windows.
Great.
Yeah.
I'm Rich Miller. I'm the president of the Chamber of Commerce here in town, and sit with Jim on the Historic Preservation Commission and Lisa. And we, my partner investors and I own about 6, or actually now 7 historic homes down where we're going to be going, including the one we'll be in, and they range from 1880 all the way up to a very modern 1915. And until this day, we've been having to replace windows with the more modern style just because they're all being turned into vacation rental properties, and it's very difficult for the average person to understand how to operate and use those older windows. But as we are moving into our next phase of homes, we have some that have very historic old windows, and we want to try to save as many of those as we can and still maintain energy efficiency and ease of use, et cetera, et cetera. So looking forward to the preservations part of it now.
Great, appreciate that. Yeah, thanks, that's a pretty good mix, which is great to see. You know, it's amazing that one, just small subsect homeowners, and you know, you have so many different angles that people come at it, but you know, everything that was just said is all things that we really focus on and creeps into the picture, you know, all the time. Obviously the usability, energy efficiency I know is a huge one, and really a point that a lot of the replacement companies try to kind of harp on, and this is why you should replace, and we'll talk throughout the day today about why some of that information maybe is not that accurate. You know, for these windows to be continue to be used, obviously they need to be usable. Ideally, you can get them to where they were functioning in their original design, like Jim was talking about, to create some air convection. And we'll talk about that on site as well. So that's a big one. And then the maintenance item, or the maintenance issue. You know, back in the day, it probably wouldn't have been tough at all when this was all the windows that there were. You know, everybody that had installed the window probably could then go back and maintain your windows, and so it was not that much of a burden on the homeowner. But now, in today's age, it is pretty rare for people that understand the maintenance part, and I think that's probably the biggest gap that we all have to face, because we can't do the simple maintenance. It can seem like a bigger issue than it is, or the windows get so bad that they do have to be replaced. So that's my goal today, is to kind of show you, you know, some steps and things that you could either take on or, you know, have a better sense of who to reach out to. Again, it's our mission to kind of help with that education, you know, working with painters and other people that are kind of in concurrent trades with us, and more that we were able to kind of guide them along too. That's our hope, is that in a lot of these communities, you might get a painting crew that all of a sudden now they're very accustomed to freeing up windows, and could open up a lot of opportunities for homeowners. So a lot of different elements to it, and yeah, this is great. Really appreciate the input. We'll try to kind of keep zeroing in on what you want to focus on. So real quick, how many people have actually tried to work on windows? I know, just as a show of hands, I know Jim had mentioned that, so we've got a couple. Okay, good. So just a couple, so this will be good too. A lot of new stuff, hopefully. And before I dive into it too, just on the item of some of the resources that are available, I am on the board for the Window Preservation Alliance, and if folks aren't familiar with that group, it's outstanding. A lot of the resources that are shown here also kind of mentioned on their website, and they have a resource library. I'm working on their sustainability committee right now to try to lead a little bit more of a charge to get some better information out there about energy efficiency and that kind of thing. So just another little tidbit, the Window Preservation Alliance is a great thing to turn to. A lot of those folks that are on there are all individuals that have either been involved with that group or heavily tied in with that group. So it's a fantastic nonprofit. So just, want to run through the process just briefly, kind of give an understanding of how you go from a window this is a sample window on the bottom. It's kind of a typical window that you might, or some of the conditions you might be running into, where you have windows where the glazing is kind of deteriorated. This glass is intact, but if you have a broken pane, like some folks were saying, how do you go from that to a finished product? And same thing on the exterior, flaking paint, getting back to a nicer finish. So here's a full restoration, which there aren't too many of us that do it, but there are some, obviously including ourselves, that do shop restoration. That's basically a full restoration. That involves steaming the windows. We pull the glass. The steam helps to soften the putty. We take the putty out, we take the glass out. We use infrared heat to strip the windows. Everything's done in our shop in kind of a lead-safe environment. Lead paint is also a big thing to keep in mind in any of this. And then we do wood repairs, we reset the glass, we refinish the interior, and what you're left with is something, potentially this is a pretty high level of finish in terms of the interior, but the full restoration is kind of setting it up for definitely the 50 to 7,500 year repair. Very involved, very labor intensive, pretty expensive for that reason. And one of the big things, again, one of our missions is to convey to the general public that this is great, but you don't always have to, this is not the only way to go. It's not, hey, you need to dump in a bunch of money into your windows and do a full restoration or replace. And I think that's where there's a huge disconnect, because most of what we hear is from these replacement companies that, hey, your glazing is failing, therefore you need to replace your window. Whereas when I look at those windows, I say, you need some routine maintenance, and we'll put that in for you, and you could save a whole lot of money right now, and in 15 years, when your replacement windows need to get replaced again, you're going to be saving money then. On the restoration side of things, we like to say that the replacement windows are called replacement windows for a reason. It's because you're going to have to replace them again. It really goes into our whole ethos of we're trying to respect and honor and maintain these materials, the craftsmanship, everything that was put in back when these windows were made, and really move away from that throwaway mentality when it comes to the windows. So
out of curiosity,
yeah.
take that window, for example.
Yes.
A fully restored one.
Mm-hmm.
How much would something like that cost?
Yeah.
I know it.
No, I know,
But
yeah.
let's say for a window about that size.
So a double hung window, so two sashes, the cost can get up near $2,000 to opening.
What?
Yeah, no, I know.
Well,
I know, it's-
But my point on that is also, I mean, if you're looking at a real high quality window, like
Mhm.
vinyl clad or metal clad on the outside and wood on the inside, double hung, the whole 9 yards, you're probably not that much.
You're not that far off.
Far off.
Yeah, and I know, I mean, in general, any of the pricing for anything
Yeah.
in construction, right, now, in today's current market, it's shocking, it really is, and it is true.
I mean, there's obviously a lot of double or even double hung vinyl windows that would be a lot cheaper, but if you were looking for a real high quality
Exactly.
replacement that would potentially last as long as something like that. would
Right,
last,
right.
Probably not.
And the reality is, you probably won't find something, that's gonna last that long. But yeah, it's staggering in cost, and that's why, a lot of the work we do, a lot of the clients we work with take advantage of historic tax credits, the grant opportunities that are here in the state. Colorado has one of the strongest programs in the whole nation for both of those things, really. So, with going the right path, that can be a way to go. But it is kind of the riddle that we're faced with as a restoration contractor. How do we make that more accessible? And again, it kind of, to me, it goes back to this education point. We like to work with owners where we can kind of guide them through a project and then let them run with it. Yesterday, I was out at an old schoolhouse in Tempest, and a group with a group that's biting off a lot, trying to restore this whole schoolhouse. I was able to do a day with them. We were re-roping windows yesterday. They were there with me, and now they're kind of off and running with things. So there's some great ways to go about it. But again, I think the main missing component is okay, that's great. Would love to have windows like this. That's a ton of money. I don't have it. So what's the alternative? And that's where this kind of maintenance category comes into play. So, and then if it's just re-roping and doing a little bit of minor work, I mean, you could be looking at as little as $50 a window. Obviously, it's going to be a much different product, but if you can get somebody out there that knows the systems, that can either do the hardest component, and then someone else comes in and locally or yourself and does the rest, that's one strategy. Or getting the skills and confidence just to dive in and try to tackle it yourself. So that's kind of, we'll gear things more towards that today, of that kind of maintenance route. We call it a window tune-up, which would be kind of getting out to just either dial in the function of a window, maybe add weather stripping, little things like oiling the pulleys and waxing the jams and things that are going to add greater usability that really can go a long way. So that's, my hope is that as for homeowners, if you can walk away from something today, I hope that's the side of things that you can walk away from. And then I don't have much out here today, but these are just kind of a few, just a brief glimpse of some of the tools, materials that you run into. If you're tackling any of the work yourself, it's not a huge investment in terms of tools, but a lot of the tools are kind of specialty items, with the exception of a few things that we have out here, which are kind of higher dollar things. This is an infrared heater, and highly recommend it, but it's one of those items that's more pricey. The reason it's infrared is with the lead paint, you just want to make sure that you're not heating that lead up to a high enough degree. Once you break, I think it's 1100 degrees, you'll start vaporizing the lead, and it can be very dangerous. So when we get into any of the stripping of paint, that's what we try to use is infrared heat. And what we'll find at this site today, and what I'm sure all of you are finding, is that paint can protect your windows, be the number one thing to protect your windows, but it can also, the buildup of paint can be the number one reason why your windows are not functioning correctly. So rarely do you need to strip your windows down, but usually there's some level of paint scraping or paint removal that's going to help a lot with your windows to get them operating correctly. So these tools here, kind of basic tools that we would run into for your average maintenance. Paint scrapers, small tools to be able to remove really delicate trim. All this work, takes a certain level of care, especially if you're not trying to destroy original profile stops and things like that are going to be very difficult to replicate. Sanding, we try to keep the sanding to a minimum again due to lead paint if there is lead paint present. And then we'll get into some of these specialty tools as well. This is called the window zipper, but it's made to kind of cut a paint line if your windows are painted shut. This is kind of a manual method, and over at the site I'll show kind of how we tend to do it with a power tool, but this is kind of another option to go. And then on this side, getting more into the glazing and refinishing. So these are products that we definitely swear by in terms of the glazing. We try to use a linseed oil based putty. Most of what you can get off the shelf, really there's only one product you can get off the shelf, and it's more of a petroleum based product. What we found, and really the whole window restoration community, there's several companies that make this linseed oil putty. It's kind of a traditional way to go about it. Longer lasting, easier to work with, faster drying. Everything across the board is more advantageous. So this is something. And the yellow is one that you would use on site. The red is what you would use in a shop setting. So this product here, if you or someone you know, a painter, anyone who's looking to tackle some of the site glazing, that's a product that would be very handy. Main drawback is it's right now you can only get it online. No one in this area is selling it. We are trying to get set up as a vendor for that to try to provide an option for people in Colorado to access that. And then this is whiting, calcium carbonate, and we may get into this over at the site as well, but basically it's mixed into putty to make it the right consistency that you're looking for, and can also be used to clean glass to get the kind of oil residue off from the glazing. Glazing tool, again, we may get, depending on timing, we may get into that at the other site. And then finally over here, just some random bits that we have, different hardware, and that's always a challenge, always running into different hardware. We were talking about this pulley system before we got started, and you'll see this at the house we're going to. Kind of a more decorative method, but basically this is the pulley for the rope system for the weights. And again, just a reason why we encourage homeowners to reach out to us. It's just helpful to know folks that are operating in this very, very small niche that we may have connections for either reused, repurposed pulleys, but there's also several kind of reproduction hardware options out there. So always much easier to just go to the hardware store, but if anyone's tackling a project, you have questions on hardware, definitely recommend reaching out because we have some pretty good sources. Things like these spring bolts, which is kind of a simple system that some people may have seen. Instead of the pulleys, have them they kind of snap into the jams, into preset holes. And then you've got the pulley system with the ropes and the weights that we'll look at. This might be something that we'll get into over there, what Jim was mentioning with needing your weights to basically counterbalance the weight of your window sash. So if you have a window this size, you have a nice, beautiful wavy glass window, it broke, got replaced, that glass there's a good chance it's going to have a different weight than the original glass. And now all of a sudden you're saying, well, why is my window, I lift it up and it just wants to drift right down, or it won't stay down, it keeps wanting to drift up. So there's other products like this where you have a sash rope and you kind of add on these little add-on pulleys that can add on, or add on weights, add on additional weight to a rope that's already there. So just some ways to retrofit to existing windows. And then weather stripping. I don't know how many people are familiar with spring bronze, but this is a traditional way to weather strip, and the whole idea is that this metal kind of flexes, and imagine this is your window jamb here. It basically kind of seals that gap between your window, and a lot of people, one thing about the usability, they say, well, you know, you go to lift the window and it wants to just go kind of rock back and forth as you come off. Well, if you've got this that has the pressure along the sides, it just kind of comes up and down smoothly, and that's a technology that, you know, I think is 125, 150 years old, so we're still using that today. And then we've got other weather stripping products. They're not ours, they're, you know, these are pretty common in the industry. This is an enlarged version of it, but they make a lot of these weather stripping products where they snap into a groove. So this kind of barbed end would basically snap into a groove, and then you have this silicone bulb. So where we see that a lot is right on the bottom of that lower sash. So when you shut that window, it's not slamming wood on wood, and then you're sealing that gap along the bottom. And something like that it's pretty simple. You can remove the stock that would hold your window sash in, get that out of the pocket, route a strip, pop it in. That's something where, you know, let's say you have a huge air gap, and you know, what am I going to do? You know, this air, you can literally feel the air coming in. Well, in half an hour, someone could come in and potentially get those retrofitted with some of the modern weather stripping. So little tweaks that you won't hear from the window replacement companies or anyone else really, you know, and they can go a long way towards cutting down the air gaps. So yeah, so you know, again, kind of a broad picture. You know, I know some of it's a bit intimidating. Hey, where do I get the products? I can't afford an infrared heater. You know, there are elements of it that are challenging to take on yourself. But if we're talking some simple maintenance, my glazing is failing. What do I do? Well, yourself or maybe a local painter, we would take a chisel and just carve out some of the selective glazing that's there, and then with a putty knife and one of these products, come back with glazing. Now your window will be dressed up quite a bit, repaint it, and it's gonna look a lot better than it was, and also seal some of that air.
You've got to stick the points in there too, right?
Yeah. A lot of times the points are still in, but yeah, and that's we'll touch on that over at the other site too. I've got some points I'll show you. So, what questions we have either on the process or items that you're looking for further info on. I want to spend most of our time over on the site, and we'll run through a lot of this continually throughout the day, but I don't know if anything's come up so far.
Is there any way to kind of reduce scratches on the old glass?
Reduce scratches on old glass. Scratches that are already there, just preventing.
No, old one.
Yeah, no, not really. Yeah, not that I know of, at least. There may be some way to go about it, but we do run into that for sure. Where glass has been pretty well scratched up. But there again, and I'm all about the weighted glass. But if that's a major hang up, let's say this window is all scratched up. I mean, of course, we would rather see every one of those panes replace the glass itself and keep the window if we can, than have someone throw it out just for the glass. And we never have a huge amount of weighted glass on hand, but we've got kind of a running stash at our shop too. So it's nice to be able to get a historic window. You have a transom window, and one of the panes got broken. Again, if you reach out to us or someone that's doing similar work, we may have weighted glass, and then you still have that same aesthetic. So it's a good way to go.
If you've got a crack, some of our windows have, cracks in them,
Mm-hmm.
from, just getting knocked around.
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible to kind of leave that in place and fill in the crack with some kind of an epoxy or?
There are epoxies out there. I mean, it's a pretty challenging fix. Usually, what we recommend is just a little bit of silicone, just so that there's not any active air coming through. I don't think it makes. Usually, it doesn't make a huge amount of difference, and it's something that's critical in looking at any window, even the highest efficiency modern replacement window. Let's say you have if this was a wood frame wall and you've got a R19 or higher insulation value in that wall, no matter what your window is, you still have all that insulation value, and then you have a gaping hole in your wall. And again, of course, there are some great options out there that are very high insulation value, but at the end of the day, it's still a glass penetration through your wall. So one thing that we really like to emphasize to anyone, homeowner or commercial projects, it's worth digging into all the facts and looking at, okay, how are we heating our building, and how's our crawl space insulated, and some of these other things that might be a whole lot better value for you to put in funding into to increase your overall efficiency. And that's really one of the items that you get one story when it comes to windows, and that's from the replacement companies. They're really kind of harped on the notion because it's easy for someone to go walk by their window and say, oh, wow, yeah, it's cooler here. But that's going to be the case with any window. And the big thing with historic windows, you can retrofit these sashes for dual pane glass. We really don't advocate for that. The glass is a lot heavier, it's a lot thicker. You end up having to modify the sashes quite a bit. Really, what we strongly recommend is getting a storm window on there. And when you have a single pane window and a storm unit, now you're taking a space that might be 2 inches, 3 inches, 5 inches, where you're getting all that solar gain from the sun, it's heating up that cavity. You're getting way more insulation value from that heated air that's trapped between your storm and your window than you would get going through the full-on effort to replace to double pane glass. And again, we'll talk through that a little bit at the site, but that's why it's just great to get the full story if anybody's thinking of going replacement, both from the dollars standpoint, like Rich was pointing out, and really the energy efficiency data. It's a little bit eye-opening. So it's again, we're biased, but there's a lot of value to keeping these windows.
Are there resources that, one of the main things that I would like to try to advocate for in this community, because we fell in the same trap. In fact, our contractor that we hired to do one of our houses, just out of ignorance, tossed probably 3 or 4 really nice window sets. But do you actively work to acquire certain types of historic windows like that you keep in the stock? So like if there is panes that need to be replaced, you can remove a wavy glass pane from maybe a window that's damaged beyond repair that you can use in other windows. I would really want to advocate for saving as many windows as we can.
Yes.
And educating people that have made the decision for whatever reason that they're going to replace them, to make sure at least that the windows and all the weights and the parts and the pieces that they pull out go to places that are doing the kind of work that you're doing that can help save other windows and other projects.
Sure, yeah, and we would love to be in touch with anyone. Yeah, there's like nothing more heartbreaking than driving by a job site and seeing windows flying into a dumpster. The original glass, I think Jim had mentioned it, most of these windows are made out of old growth lumber. We've had a number of projects where we have, there's someone in the state that'll do wood identification testing. They do like a microscopic test, and we've had windows tested, and it comes back as basically ponderosa pine. And if you've seen modern ponderosa pine, there's usually knots everywhere. It looks totally different. And we were just like shocked. We were like, that's ponderosa pine. It's just beautiful, tight grain, and perfectly clear. You're dealing with materials that literally don't exist anymore. So
Yeah.
if there are,
I've got a really good example of that in the house that we just finished one block over, where it had, from 1915, original pine floors that were refinished, but we had to replace a few boards here and there with new, and it just,
Stands out.
stands out.
I mean, it's cool, in my mind, it tells the story of the house. I didn't care if the floors were like, perfectly in uniform, but it does show like the tightness of the grain and everything in an old growth product versus new.
100%. Yeah, and it's incredible. Right, no, it is amazing.
Sometimes when you do that, you can borrow the wood. We had a spot in our living room that we needed to replace some floorboards.
Yeah.
And we took the boards out of the closet. And
Yeah, well, and we actually did that. We removed all of the flooring under the kitchen that was running the opposite way of everything else, and the joists needed replaced underneath it, so we had to remove it, but we pulled them up board by board, and we were able to use all of that to fill in most of the places, but there were just like 5 or 6 boards short. Yeah. And you can sometimes, just like windows, you can source old flooring that's been pulled out of houses too, so it's all kind of the same situation.
Yeah. No,
Preserving that old wood for use for a different.
For sure. Yeah, we do try to stockpile. We try to.
Okay.
If we're doing repairs, if we can pull from our pile of old growth wood.
A lot of times we see them and, they'll end up, at best case scenario, they'll end up on Facebook Marketplace or an antique store. And people can use them for decorative purposes. I guess that's better than going in the trash bin, but I would prefer to see it go to actual window restoration projects.
For sure. No, it's a great thing to keep in mind, and there's some good salvage yards out there too.
there's a place in Florence here that has some salvage.
Does it?
That you can
Vintage.
get some parts from.
Okay.
Really great
Okay.
selection.
Yeah. Like let's say you have, a lot of original wood windows, you got one vinyl window, a team like ours or somebody else could fabricate a new wooden sash, or sashes to go in that opening, or, you can always source it from a salvage yard if you can find the right sizing, so.
That's always the problem. The chances.
It's a challenge.
Same
Yeah.
size is very slim.
Right, but it's worth, if it's that or just immediate replacement, definitely advocate for reaching out to someone like us or someone else that can do a little bit of legwork to make sure that you've done all your homework before you start pulling them out.
Great.
Great, well, are there any other questions? If not, I think we might migrate over to the site, and I think a lot of the discussions will be a lot more impactful over there to be able to kind of see it right in front of you. Again, I guess the main takeaway over here that I'd like people to take away is feel free to reach out if you have any of these questions. We can point you in the direction of the products. We can kind of give you some insights on where we think the most impact's going to be. Like weather stripping might be reglazing on site. Usually, even just a couple photos sent over our way, we can get some pretty good feedback to you. And over there, we'll get to see kind of the main application of it in the field.